Okay, so how do you stop your dog from whining? Okay, so this is a common one I get a lot from people. We have it happen for dogs that we've trained, that we have got to stop whining, but then we give them to their new people and they'll start whining for their new people. We have them where people get puppies, and puppies tend to whine a lot more, and if it's not corrected, it just continues on into adulthood. And we also get this question a lot from people who have had their dogs for a while, and they've either it's whined for a long time, or it hasn't typically whined, but as they start their training with the academy, it begins whining because it doesn't want to do what it's being required to do now. It wants to have that freedom to just run around and do whatever it wants. All right, so in either of these cases or in any of these cases, this is how we handle whining with the dog. We need to have our collars and our leads on the dogs at all times. Whenever the dog is inside, unless it's in a crate, it should have its prong collar on, and it should have some kind of a lead on it, whether you use a house lead, which my wife loves in the house, or you use like a 6-foot lead, because it's just more convenient to move around with it and things of that nature. Have a lead on your prong collar, have the prong collar on the dog, and when they whine, they get a pop, but instead of saying leave it, we say quiet. Now, the first time you do this, it may take several pops because they may not fully understand what quiet is. So here's what you do. You pop them, you tell them quiet. They start to whine again, you pop them, you tell them quiet. They start to whine again, you pop them, you tell them quiet. This might take 4 or 5 times, but as soon as they're quiet, you say good, quiet. Now usually what happens is they're quiet for a second, you say good, quiet. And then within just a couple seconds after that, they'll start to whine again. So I pop them again, I say fooey, quiet. And real quick they'll start to learn, you say good, quiet when I don't make any noise. When I make this noise with my voice, then you start giving me corrections and telling me quiet again. So the first time you do this, it takes a little bit of introduction for them to start to understand what the command quiet means. But then as they start to understand it, you just tell them quiet and you give them a pop. Okay, now here's where a lot of people run into problems. A lot of times the dogs won't whine when they're out in the house or out with you doing things, but they'll whine in their crates. Now if that happens, here's my recommendation. Don't use an expensive lead on a dog in a crate, because dogs will chew their leads a lot more frequently in the crates. So my recommendation is go get a really cheap lead, something like from Walmart or whatever, just $5. Put that on your dog, run it through the crate door and outside, but on their prong collar while they're in the crate. If they whine in the crate, you'll do the same thing. You'll walk up, you'll tell them fooey, quiet, and you'll give them a pop. Okay, now the first time they get popped in their crate, they may have a little bit of overreaction, even with a small correction, because they're not used to getting corrected in their crate, especially if you've been doing this training for a little while, but they don't normally get corrected from the crate. They kind of think it's a safe place. But if they're whining in there, they need to stop it. So you give them a little pop, you tell them fooey, quiet. And again, you might have to follow the same process, fooey, quiet, fooey, quiet. As we talked about before, you do light corrections at the beginning. Use light corrections 10, 15, 20 times before you boost it up. And when you do ramp it up a little bit, do that for a little while before you ramp it up again. Remember, sometimes we ramp it up a little bit, but then we just need to be consistent at that level. Okay, so don't just keep ramping it up really hard. You just do a little bit. Be consistent with that for just a little while. If that doesn't work, ramp it up a little bit more, ramp it up a little bit more. But give them an opportunity each time you ramp it up to actually respond to that level of correction before you go to the next level. Okay? So if they're in their crate, put the collar or the lead on their prong collar in the crate and run it through the door so that it's outside, so you can come up and grab it and you can pop the dog and tell them fooey, quiet. If they're out or about moving around with you and they start whining, you give them a pop, you say quiet. And then remember, as always, praise, praise, praise. As soon as they're quiet, good, quiet. They start to whine again, give them a pop, say fooey, quiet. As soon as they're quiet, good, quiet. And then if they get quiet for longer periods of time, praise them multiple times in there. Good, quiet. Oh, good, quiet. You walk around the house, they're not whining. Good, quiet. You're doing a great job. Okay, continue to encourage that. Remember, you need both the negative when they do something they shouldn't, as well as the positive to keep that confidence level up. Okay, so use this if you have some specific problem that's not being addressed, or you're applying these techniques and something else is arising. Make sure you send us an email and we'll get a video out just for you.